Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to today's broadcast. It's the Tuesday, August 4th, 2026 episode of the Marco Juray Show, the only show where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Glad to have every one of you here with me today in this Tuesday episode of the show. President Trump went on Truth Social yesterday, went on a massive tirade threatening another decapitation strike against the Iranians. At the same time, he's telling them they need to come to the table and make another deal. Isn't that interesting? Now, at the same time that he's saying all this, Iranian spokesman Ismail Baghai has recently said they're not even speaking to anybody inside the United States government. Then today, Scott Bessent, in all of his glory, comes out and says that a deal may be in place to open up the Strait of Hormuz either today or Wednesday. Now, folks, this back and forth is no good. No one is gaining anything from this. Is MAGA winning the American people over, or is this just crashing and burning and winding up in the crap house? You tell me. And by the way, I've got more about Iran today in just a little bit, as we'll look at some of the polling from a very good pollster that tends to be more right-leaning, that President Trump, again, seems to be dismissing right now. But moreover, my first line of attack today is very simple. It's something we don't always go over or discuss on the program. It's your money, your own personal finances, balancing the money in your wallet. You know, it was here a minute ago. Now where the hell is it? It's gone. Now, what happened? Well, we have the tariffs come in. We have inflation spiraling upward as we speak right now, affecting our purchasing power right here in the United States. We got to take a look at this first article coming out of Newsweek. And it says here that the tariff refunds of 2025 split the companies as consumers demand a share of the $166 billion that the U.S. government has taken in. Imagine that. So you paid higher prices at the store because President Trump slapped these tariffs on. Now, never forget, a tariff is a tax. The companies adjusted to this. If their production costs went up, if whatever went up, they adjusted for that in due time. That's how every type of inflation works. That's how every type of tariff works. These companies adjust. So now the importers, upon these shipments, upon these imports coming to the United States, they paid the U.S. Treasury right up front. Before they even landed on U.S. soil, the tariff for that product was paid for. So the Treasury collected this $166 billion. Now the products go to these companies, these commodities that people want to buy in the U.S. They make it to the shelves in several retailers, several stores, right? You go to the store, you pick it out and you buy it. Well, those costs, ladies and gentlemen, also reflected what happened with the tariff. So if there was a 50% tariff that was slapped on your microwave, you paid for that 50% more at the store. Yet, for some reason, we're seeing this wealth now being transferred from the U.S. people, everybody here in the U.S., going now to the same businesses that also raise the prices. Tell me how that makes any sense to anybody listening. Weren't we supposed to get a refund for the tariffs at some point? Wasn't that discussed at some point? That was the real issue here. It was the people paying the higher prices, the consumers paying the higher prices. And if you listen to my show for any length of time, you know that the core inflation has gone up significantly. As of late, it was somewhere around 4%. Those numbers are still up, by the way, even though inflation is said to have cooled last month because of lower gas prices. Those numbers are going to go up very, very soon. But here we go. We got a majority of American companies now that are adopting different approaches as to how to use the millions and even the billions, as you'll see momentarily, of dollars in refunds, and now what they are going to do with this money they've gotten from the government. An Amazon executive last week confirmed that the company received approximately $600 million in tariff refunds during its second financial quarter. Not too bad, folks. Not too bad for raising your prices and getting that money back in general. Now, in terms of sharing this with the customers, the chief financial officer has said that Amazon has absorbed the tariffs in most cases. Yeah, no kidding. But has identified a limited set of circumstances where import surcharges were passed on to consumers. No kidding. No, because folks, listen, they wouldn't be able to operate if they're not making a profit. They go broke. So anytime we see inflation numbers rising, especially core inflation numbers, anytime you hear about tariffs coming in the United States, tariffs are great, tariffs are good, look at all this money we're getting from tariffs, you are paying for that difference. Whether it be 5%, 1%, 50%, doesn't matter what it is. That has to reflect the goods that you buy. Any way you look at it. So, okay, they've received these refunds. They received the price for the goods already. They've made a profit on it. But now he's talking about, will we proactively contact affected customers and automatically issue refunds to them? Now, how the hell are they going to do this? Are they really going to go through the God knows how many hundreds of millions of customers Amazon has, possibly billions? Are they really going to go through all that and give people money back? How long is that going to take, by the way? Who's going to do this? Are we going to have, AI come and do it? I know Amazon's been laying off a lot of their employees. Are they going to have AI come in and figure out who was ripped off here by these IEEPA tariffs that President Trump installed in 2025? Is that the way we're going to go about this now? And by the way, my hat's off to Amazon if they actually do that. Chances of doing that are very slim. Let's look at some other companies here. Apple receiving $2.2 billion in tariff refund checks. Other big winners, we got Walmart, $10 billion they got from the U.S. government. That's not too bad, folks. Target got $2 billion, Costco, $2 billion, Nike, $1 billion, Home Depot, $2 billion. Meanwhile, what do you have? Well, you just have higher prices. That's all you have from this. Is this what winning is actually looking like here in the United States in 2025 and 2026? We elected Donald Trump to lower prices, to reduce inflation. Now we have inflation sitting just over 4% right now. That's only going to go up, folks. Now we're seeing the oil prices down right now because, again, the talks of more negotiations, striking a deal, opening up the Strait of Hormuz. I'm here to tell you none of that's going to happen. And I don't say this because I don't want President Trump to succeed. I want him to succeed. I want him to cut a deal. But he's not serious about any of this. This is the problem. We go back and forth. Over the weekend, they were going to obliterate him. We're going to strike him harder than they've ever been struck. And now we're talking about, they're calling us up and wanting to make a deal. Not true. Not true. And again, by the way, if you listen to yesterday's show, you heard Ismail Bagai saying specifically, we're not talking to anybody in the United States. They're talking to the Qataris. They're talking to the Pakistanis. Or possibly some intermediaries between the two. But no one is talking directly to the United States. No one from Iran is calling up D.C. and talking to President Trump directly, or anybody in the White House for that matter. It's not happening. Not happening. But that sounds good, doesn't it? The rhetoric sounds good. They're calling us up. They want to make a deal. How many times have we heard this, and how many times has it backfired? Because they're not talking to the United States. And the intel that I listened to has stated just that, folks. Just that. So the rhetoric is good in terms of the stock market, which is highly inflated thanks to AI. Gas prices are coming down, which many people like, but the price of the pump is not suggesting that it's moving down anytime soon. Because they still have to wait and see, is this war actually over? Is this finished? And if it's not finished, then we don't lower the prices. The price of oil could be $78 today, it could be $98 tomorrow. Doesn't matter. Prices are staying consistent, right? You're still paying well over $4 per gallon across the United States on average. Nobody likes that. And by the way, that's also causing the price of goods to go up because we see diesel well over $5 per gallon. Diesel's how you get everything from the manufacturing or from the warehouse to the store so you can buy it. So if you see diesel going up, you say, well, I drive an EV, it doesn't matter to me. Well, yeah, it does because you're paying more at the store anyways. That's how it works. So, we see this taking place now. We're talking about more tariffs that have just been installed. President Trump's going to do something else with tariffs very, very soon. We're talking about prices rising, at least in terms of tariffs, with goods coming in from Canada, from Brazil, from the EU. He's just slapping on different tariffs now to adjust to what he can do with the economy. That's what it comes down to. Now, why you would put on tariffs in a time of inflation is beyond me. I don't know who's advising the president on the economy. I don't know if it's Scott Bessent. I don't know. All I know is it's a very, very bad decision. So do I think we're going to get refunds from Amazon? Probably not. But if they want to pay for my Amazon Prime, have at it. That'd be great. That'd be very good. Buy a couple movies for me too in there. I'd love it. Look at this. General Motors expected to receive a $1.3 billion. Yeah, not too bad. Ford is going to get $1.3 billion. General Motors is going to get $500 million in rebates. That's pretty good. I like that. Selling the same damn overpriced vehicle and getting more money back from the government. Folks, this is what I've been telling you the entire time. This is a complete transfer of wealth. You are losing money. Any way you look at it, it doesn't matter if you make $200,000 a year or $50,000 a year, you are still losing your purchasing power in the terms of inflation and also in the tariffs. That's just the way it is. These companies that sell these products adjust to it. They have to. If they didn't, they would go out of business. That's how it works. And so, in a time when we're in a midterm election cycle, when the going is getting rough, we've got to look at what Trump is doing and say to ourselves, so we're really going to give these big corporations that already have these billion-dollar revenues and give them more money when it's the American people that are struggling? We saw this during COVID. We saw the massive transfer of wealth. And I don't say that in a Bernie Sanders type of sense, when he's talking about that. I'm just speaking in general. When you had businesses that were deemed essential, which were largely these big corporations, again, think Walmart, think Staples, think all these big corporations. They were allowed to keep their doors open. Well, a small business had to shut their businesses down. Many people lost their business. I know, I was in California. I saw it firsthand. And now the same thing is happening in regards to these tariffs. You are getting charged more at the store. You're paying those costs. You're agreeing to that. You're paying for it. Absolutely, you're losing money because now you're paying more for the same product, whether it be gas, or it could be a toaster, it could be whatever the hell you want it to be. Doesn't matter to me. Anything that's imported, which is a lot in this country, you're paying more for. All right? That's just the plain truth about it. You're paying more. These companies raise their prices to, again, react to what President Trump's doing, what's taking place inside D.C., inside the Beltway, and then they're giving them even more money that has been extracted by these importers now in the terms of the tariffs. So, folks, totally the wrong look that you want here. If President Trump really wanted to goad people into voting for Republicans this November, he probably should have given the money to the consumers on average, whether it be $2,000, $3,000, whatever he wanted it to be. In terms of saying, hey, listen, I made a mistake. Here you go. Here's your money back that you probably have spent on the last year, this amount of money more. That didn't happen, though. The money went to the bigs, who are getting bigger, and those of us who are not the bigs are getting smaller. That's what it comes down to. That's just the truth of the matter. Any way you look at it, that is what's taking place right now, right in front of your eyes. And so if any of these companies come out and reward their customers through that time period, my hat's off to them. But I'm not holding my breath for any of that. I don't think you should too. And so I wanted to share that with you folks because, again, this is very important. We talk about the economy a lot in this program because we need a solid economy. This is why we elected President Trump. To fix the economy, not to make more problems. We talk about free enterprise in this program. Free trade. That should be the way things work. This extra taxation that keeps getting swapped onto our goods in this country is making more things unaffordable for people. You're seeing people having now to manage, as I said to you before, balance out their checkbook in terms of what is more essential. Do they pay their utility bill or do they, buy something else? That's why you're seeing a lot of the leisurely things, the hospitality. That's all dropping out now as time goes on. But the economy is not doing as great as we're being told. That's what I wanted to make very clear to you today. And so I'm sure if you're a big corporation, if you're Walmart, you're very happy today. You just increased your net worth by what, $10 billion just given to you from the government? Never had to close the doors once during COVID. Never had to close the doors. No, I don't shop at Walmart, but I know they were open the whole time. And folks, a lot of people are going to be very miffed about this. I just wanted to say that. I'm sure you listening are wondering why you paid more for goods when these corporations are getting the same money back to them. It's amazing to me. Anyways, let me talk to you about this article coming out of ZeroHedge. Let's go to another story worth talking about. And For those of you that listen to the program quite often, you know that I'm very keen on bringing back manufacturing in the company. That's a big thing. We should be doing this. This should be number one, manufacturing. President Trump, day one, should just be focusing, how do I get manufacturing back to the United States, including jobs? That's what he wants, job numbers. Not automation, but job numbers. How do we get jobs back in the United States? What do we have to do? You should have sat down with Scott Bessent. He can sit down now with Kevin Warsh and say, how do we build this economy? How do we grow this as Reagan did? And that's very crucial, because what Reagan did in the 1980s grew the economy to such a degree. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, again, I was only alive for a little bit of the 1980s, but he grew the economy to such a degree. He created, I believe it was 20 million jobs. That's how big the economy just expanded. But GDP growth was massive. He was getting, I think it was 1984, he had 7.4% growth in GDP. That is massive. And that type of growth continued on because what did he do? Well, Reagan lowered taxes across the board. The average home saw a massive increase in their overall wealth because, again, the economy was expanding so quickly. You were seeing anywhere from low-end earners rising their net worth their income, rather, about $20,000. And the highest earners saw roughly about $50,000 in growth on average. Now, again, it's on average. It doesn't mean everybody got $20,000 more. But there was a massive shift in the take-home pay for many Americans. So huge growth from what Reagan did. Absolutely, 100%. And we have to ask ourselves, is Trump going to be a Reagan, or what is he going to be? What is his legacy going to look like in the years to come? What will it look like in terms of how he's running the economy right now? Because, ladies and gentlemen, it seems like he's running the economy like a Jimmy Carter, especially in terms of this oil output that we're not getting in the United States because we're importing the sour crude at lower levels. We're drilling through our strategic petroleum reserves right now. We're getting to crucial record lows. We haven't seen lows like this since 1984 in this country. And what do we do after that? What do we do when we reach the bottom of that? When we've depleted everything that we could possibly utilize? What happens then? When we run out of diesel or jet fuel, what happens next? Well, I think you know what's going to happen. The economy is going to completely collapse. If you cannot get goods to market, if you cannot get planes to move, and then, by the way, if our military is in standstill using just our emergency resources now because we don't have any more oil left, I think this war in Iran would end pretty soon. Just thought I'd share that with you as well. But anyways, this comes out of ZeroHedge, and it says here, despite the latest manufacturing PMI numbers, this is the Managers Index, surging to 4-year highs, the U.S. factory orders unexpectedly dropped in June, negative 0.3% month over month, versus the expected 0.2% increase they were expecting. Didn't happen. Now, this is the second monthly decline in the headlines that we've seen now. Even though the year-over-year showing that there's a 7.4% increase in orders. So when you look at the Purchasing Managers Index, I keep saying that wrong for some reason, I don't know why today. There's a couple different things you look at when you're talking about this. It's not just employment, right? Now, when I talk about manufacturing, I want more opportunities for people to work in these factories because they tend to be better paying jobs. But the manufacturing PMI looks at a couple different things in terms of economic indicators. This could be anything from production to new orders. Employment does play a role in that. Supplier deliveries, inventories. There's a whole scope of things that happen here. Now, ours is up year over year, 7.4%. That's good. That's positive. That shows that the economy is expanding. However, what we're seeing now is a little bit of a downward spiral right now. Again, Bloomberg is saying exactly the same thing. They're saying that the orders ex-defense also tumbled 0.4% month over month, down for the second month in a row. I'm looking at the chart here, and we're going from being in the green from the start of this year. Now we're looking at being in the red. And I would imagine the war has something to do with this. So while there's a little bit of positivity that comes with this, we're seeing a lot of these companies in the manufacturing in the green coming largely from what? Coming from AI, coming from the semiconductors. That's going to be put on hold very soon, though, the semiconductors. Why? Because 44% of the helium necessary to create the semiconductors isn't coming out of the Persian Gulf. That means what, folks? Either you don't get it or you pay more for it. We've seen those prices rising in that. Electronics, machinery firms, all reporting strong demand from AI data centers. We know Trump is allowing that to take place. We know people are trying to install them all across the United States. But we've got chips and we've got defense. Those are all in the green right now. Now, the red comes in from the metals, the transportation, chemicals, consumer-related sectors reporting, again, weak demand. We have the tariffs, we have the higher cost, we have the geopolitical risk, all pricing into chaos. This is what it comes down to. So when I started the show and I told you the tariffs and inflation are doing a number on the economy, I wasn't kidding. But this is also affecting the manufacturing inside the United States. And when we see numbers in the red, again, I'm looking at this chart, we have certainly some green for sure, but we're seeing a lot of red here. And I don't like this. I want to see green because any number over 50 indicates that we're growing. I want to see growth. I don't want to see any regression. So yes, we're looking at AI booming. The supply chain is booming because the government is bullish on it. That's why it's happening. Defense, again, same thing. We're making these new deals. We're trying to get more money allocated in the National Defense Authorization Act to build more weaponry. And we'll get into the depleted stockpiles we have in the military very, very soon. But everything else seems to be struggling. And this is problematic, folks. And I say this to you as well, largely because we think about, for instance, soybeans. Let's use a typical topic like soybeans, right? I don't use soy products at all. It's an endocrine disruptor. It's a phytoestrogen. It doesn't belong in our bodies. But let's just use that for an example. President Trump went to China, and he came back with a deal to have the Chinese buy more soybeans, right? So that means we're producing soybeans. We're manufacturing it. We ship it. That's a business, okay? Any way you look at it, it's a business. Well, ladies and gentlemen, what happens when the farmers don't have the diesel necessary to cultivate their product, to collect their product, to ship their product, and they don't have the ability to put them on tractor trailers to ship them from point A to point B to get on a ship, which again also runs on that same sour crude, to get it to where it needs to go? Well, that's a complete shutdown in the supply chain. Now, defense is okay. Defense will be fine. We can't go below 270 million barrels of oil, which, again, is necessary for the military should we be in any type of conflict, which we're rapidly getting closer and closer to. AI, again, same concept. Government's bullish on it. The government's investing in it. Government is talking all about AI. AI, that's going to be the next big thing. And it is the next big thing. But where is the valuation? Where is the revenue coming from? Is there revenue coming from it? What have we seen produced with this that we're investing so much in right now? So people are bullish on AI because the government is. No doubt about it. They think it's the next big thing. They want to get in on it early. That way they make some money. And I'm not saying the tech stocks aren't a good investment because right now they're growing. But at some point, what have I been telling you? There's going to be an AI bubble and it's going to bust this year. As sure as I'm sitting here talking to you today on this Tuesday, that bubble will burst sometime this year. And then we're going to be in lots of trouble. We'll be in a very big recession. And if we don't have any oil, we can't get, again, the goods to market, to get to your service, that's going to be another big problem. And it's going to completely shut down commerce in the United States. So we've got an oil crisis going on. We've got an AI bubble booming. We've also got a building bubble that's brewing right now, especially in our major cities right now. We have so many buildings, roughly 20% if we're averaging it all across the United States. Buildings that are not being used. What happens when these owners of these buildings default on them? We're going to have a banking bust, and so on and so forth. So we're in a bit of a different time now. So we can look at the stock market and say, wow, that looks great. But the stock market does not equate always to Main Street. We've got to understand that. That's how it works. So I want to be very clear with you folks because this is happening quickly. Again, we're seeing the oil go down, but that's only going to be as long as Trump keeps his rhetoric up for. You know, he can come out tomorrow and say, we're going to bomb in 24 hours. We're going to bomb the hell out of them again. And then, of course, we have problems again. The price of oil is going to go up. I mean, it was just over $90 over the weekend. And I imagine it'll be consistent with that at some point. Because once the supply chain is totally choked out, you have nowhere else to go. Nowhere else to go. If supply is not there, you can't change that. And we're rapidly approaching that, especially with diesel and the jet fuel alike. And you'll get it, or the cost will be much, much higher, folks. So what Trump should be doing right now, getting the manufacturing back in the United States, especially if we're in a period where we're seeing growth coming in again. Year over year, we're seeing more growth in the manufacturing. I like it, but it's not anywhere where it needs to be. It needs to keep increasing. And by the way, we're seeing a lot of automation with manufacturing right now that makes things more easy for these companies. Fine, I'm fine with that, but we need more so we can have more of these jobs. That's what it comes down to. And on another note, I do want to refer us over to the Iran war. This is very important, ladies and gentlemen. We have to talk about this. Now, Scott Bessent has come out and said that there may be a deal either Tuesday or Wednesday, so either today or tomorrow, to open up the Strait of Hormuz with freedom of movement. Now, I'd love to know who Scott Bessent talked to in the Iranian government. They never say. But he said the U.S. and Iran could reach a deal on Tuesday or Wednesday to reopen the Strait of Hormuz with freedom of movement for all commercial ships. This is what Scott Bessent said to CNBC. He said, there is a chance we may have a deal today or tomorrow to open up the straits and move towards a more normalized position in the conflict. It would be freedom of movement. That's what he's saying right now. And he was asked whether they would charge a toll or not. He didn't have a comment on that. The Iranians will be charging a toll. That's why they're speaking with the Omanis right now, folks, because they're going to be the ones that control the strait as time goes on. No doubt about that again. They're definitely going to be having a toll system. This is what they're moving towards. They realize they cannot negotiate with the United States any longer. Just isn't going to happen. The U.S. will do whatever it wants to do, whether they sign a negotiation, whether they say it to somebody in the government. Doesn't matter. They will do what they want to do when they want to do it. And the Iranians are picking up on this finally. They should have picked up on this last June. But this is where things are going. They don't trust President Trump. I was listening to one of their generals earlier on Judge Andrew Napolitano's show, and he was saying that, Trump last year could work with him a little bit, but now it's the mental cognition is not there anymore. He's not living up to his word. Well, that's a pretty sad thing when you think about it. When we elected President Trump in 2024, we wanted him to be a leader that was going to negotiate good deals for the United States. Good deals in terms of foreign policy. Good trade deals. Absolutely. But now we've got higher tariffs, we have higher inflation, we have higher core inflation in the United States, producing prices all up. And as time goes on, we're seeing a more and more out of control foreign policy taking place. And it's staying, not leaving. We haven't solved any one of these conflicts. President Trump has said that he has solved it. It just hasn't happened. We were supposed to bomb them all over the weekend, right? Iran was going to get hit really, really hard. That's what he kept saying. And I was anticipating it over the weekend. Okay, at any moment now, we're going to have this big explosion going off and the war will resume to a higher degree. Let me play you Trump. I was going to play this for you yesterday. But this was President Trump just the other day. Take a listen to what he had to say about the Iranians.
We had an attack that would be the biggest attack since World War II. And it would have been disastrous for them. And they didn't want us to do it. And frankly, Saudi Arabia didn't want it either. They thought that a deal is imminent.
Is there a deadline, sir?
And the deal is imminent, having to do with the Hormuz Strait and also ultimately the denuclearization of Iran. So when I hear that, I say, well, do we want to go and be this severe? Now, there's a group of people that would like me to just do it. And there's another group of people that does not want me to do it. We're ready to go anytime we want. Would I rather make a deal? I'm not looking to kill people. Because people die, a lot of people die, and we don't want that. So they asked us, Iran specifically, but the other three said I asked Saudi Arabia, the king, I said, the crown prince, I said, what would you rather do? Would you rather have us do this or not? And they said, we would much prefer a deal as opposed to an attack, because you don't know where these attacks lead. I mean, will they be flooded with people pouring into their country and disaster? A lot of bad things can happen.
I wish he had this foresight before this started. Who is he talking to in the government? That's really what I want to know here. Who is calling him up and asking to stop this? We don't want this to happen. But I do believe that he was talking to the Qataris. I believe he was talking probably to Saudi Arabia, to the UAE. I'm sure they were saying, listen, if you go in and bomb again, if you start hitting these desalination plants, start hitting these energy facilities, energy infrastructure, roads, bridges, tunnels, they're going to hit us harder than ever before, too. And we cannot sustain this moving forward. The Saudis know, and I said this to you on the program yesterday, the Iranians threatened to strike all of the Aramco oil facilities in Saudi Arabia. This would be it for the Saudis. They would be done. And I want to remind you, ladies and gentlemen, we're in the middle of summer, and it is very, very hot in the Persian Gulf, in the Saudi Arabia, UAE, all these countries. Iran is very hot right now. Everything is hot. It's a desert climate. Probably sitting at about 120 degrees today, on average. It's unbearable when you have no AC. If you don't have the refining for the oil, how are you going to start up your AC? You're not. It's going to be unbearable to live there. Absolutely unbearable if you don't have it. So what does that mean? Trump is right. Are people going to be leaving? Certainly people are going to be going into Saudi Arabia, but they're going to be leaving and going someplace else. Where would they go? Doesn't matter, but they're going to leave. So now you have a migrant crisis that on your hands where you have all these people leaving. And a lot of people that live in these countries, folks, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, a lot of them are not from this area. They work there, they've gone there, but they're not of that people. So they're just going to pack up and leave. Maybe they're there for work, but they're going to pack up and leave. There's no reason for them to stay there. So that's a problem. I think everyone would agree with me on that one. If we have a mass exodus of people leaving, perhaps going to Europe, who the hell knows? We've seen that taking place as of late, have we not? With the facilitation of what took place from Morocco going into Ceuta and the other autonomous zone that Spain has in North Africa. We saw this over the weekend, right? All by design. Obviously, these people, 60,000 people are going to wake up one day and say, you know what? I'm heading over to Ceuta today. I'm going to do that. I'm going to swim across the barrier, through the ocean. I'm going to get there. These people were more than likely paid off, ladies and gentlemen, just so we're clear on that. And as a result, most of them are back now across the border. Most of them, not all of them. But that was another mess in and of itself, likely pushed by the U.S. and Israel. Or so I've been told. Here's the problem, though. Here's the problem President Trump has. He's come out now, again, saying that Iran is calling. They want to make a deal. They're doing this. They're doing that. They're begging me. I'm so generous. Yeah, no one in Iran is actually speaking to the President of the United States. So what does this tell us? Who do we believe? Well, ladies and gentlemen, when President Trump says something that the Iranians also come out and say, yes, we're talking to him, then I'll believe it. But until then, I just simply don't buy this. No one in the Iranian government has come out and said, we are talking directly to the United States. There's nothing about opening up the Strait of Hormuz in any capacity. Let's listen to Trump again. This was him just yesterday, again referring to the same thing on Iran calling. Take a listen.
They called me and they said, please don't attack. We'll make a deal. That's the real truth. And everyone knows it. And who wouldn't call? And they found out through leaks and sleaze bags. But in this case, leakers helped because they said the severity of the attack. And Iran knew it. They knew what was coming. It was going to come last night. And it would have gone on for a long time. And there'd be essentially very little left. There'd be nothing left. And if I'm given a chance to let a lot of people live, I want to give that chance.
He wants to give that chance. I don't buy it. I don't believe people are calling. I think this is all market manipulation. I believe that's where we are right now. I don't believe they're going to open up the Strait of Hormuz. Why would they? We violated every part of the memorandum of understanding. The Iranians are just going to beg to stop this conflict now, all of a sudden? Well, they've dealt with much, much more during the first 40 days of this. During the first 40 days, we were barraging back and forth. We were hitting different targets. We've killed Iranian citizens. Now, all of a sudden, they're going to beg that the United States doesn't bomb again? By the way, President Trump is saying it like he didn't just come out and say it all over the weekend. They were going to hit Iran hard. So obviously they watch the media in the United States. They understand what President Trump is saying. You don't need to have a leak to hear that. And we all knew about it, but again, President Trump again backed down. Why did he back down? It's because Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, these nations he was speaking with in the Gulf were likely telling him, this is going to be bad for us. We cannot sustain this going forward. We cannot allow Aramco to be completely destroyed. We'll be done. We'll be done. We'll have a migrant crisis on your hands as well. With what to show for it? Absolutely nothing. Now, Bessent also, in his CNBC article, also said it's not just energy, which is a major factor in this, by the way. We need energy to be flowing through the Persian Gulf. He's talking about fertilizer, it's refined products. Who's been telling you about this? Me. He said various industrial gases as well. He said we could see a big relief in trade if these prices begin to go down. It's not going to happen, though. It's not going to happen. Let me tell you why. Even if the Strait of Hormuz were to be open today or tomorrow, let's say that did happen. It was free flow, commercial traffic. You still have months before any of those products even reach the United States at any real capacity. Much of the ships that are moving through the Strait right now, by the way, their traffic has gone down significantly. Everything's going to Asia. None of it's coming to the United States. None of it's going to Europe. Everything is going to Asia right now, largely to China. So, again, President Trump can call it off all he wants. He can say we're talking, but who are they really speaking to? Where are they meeting to discuss this? And who's negotiating? We never get these answers. We just continue to hear this rhetoric again. All market manipulation. That's the way I see it. And I see our allies in the region, Saudi Arabia, again, Qatar, UAE, Kuwait, they're probably saying to Trump, this is going to be bad. This is going to be very bad when this goes on. And then we're going to have a real disaster, even worse than the economy probably, again, if these countries, these nations just simply fall. What do they become? Nobody knows. But you would see a mass exodus of people, especially, like I said, in times when it's very, very hot in the Persian Gulf. It's unbearably hot. And they need the oil for the AC and what have you. Yep, so there's that, folks. I think Trump, in his moment of clarity, came back and said, you know what, this is probably going to be worse than better for me. Certainly in the press. So let's just hold off on this for a while. Let's just say we're talking. Maybe we do something else. But yeah, I don't see an end to this. I really don't see an end to this until we are either one, out of money, or two, we're out of oil to get our ships moving and our Air Force moving. There's no other way around it. I think this goes on as far as we can probably take it, but we'll probably hold off on bombing the energy sectors inside Iran. That's the way I view it. We'll see if I'm right. Now, let's go on to this topic too. We're talking about oil, especially coming out of the Persian Gulf. This comes out of the BBC. It says, now a threat to oil tankers in the Middle East worse since the start of the Iran war. So, again, this has got to be in Trump's mind. This has to be on Trump's mind today. Ships carrying oil are at the lowest level since the war began. And by the way, folks, you can go to marinetraffic.com. If you don't believe me, you can look at the ships. You can see what kind of ship it is. And where they're going, what the name of the ship is, what country owns the ship. And you can see where they're going. It's brilliant. You can see who's traversing, who's not, who's sitting still. The traffic is lower than it has been in quite some time. Again, not positive. This is bad. Because a lot of these insurers for these ships don't want them moving. They simply don't want it. They don't know what will happen if the ship tries to traverse on its own. Now, I've made it clear to you, any vessel, by the way, that is coordinated with the Iranians in the way in which they want, those ships have been able to traverse. They've been able to get to where they need to go. There's been no issue. They use the Iranian side of the Strait of Hormuz, and they're fine. They're fine. But a lot of these European countries, especially that own these ships in the region, Lloyd's of London, if you will, the insurers are simply telling them to stay put because they don't want any damage done to the ship and the cargo on the vessel. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. So Trump would say we have the strait wide open. It's free for movement of freedom in the Strait of Hormuz, but it's got to come from the Iranians. It's got to. And they will be controlling that as time goes on. Again, they're not going to give this up. This is a major piece of leverage for them, especially moving forward. And by the way, Trump is talking about denuclearization. He's talking about opening up the Strait. The Iranians have made it clear, and I know because I listen to people in the intel community that know people in various governments in their intel that are involved in these talks, and they have made it very clear, and I'll share that with you. The Iranians have said any deal moving forward will be, again, on their terms, but first and foremost, everything has to be up front now. So there could be no more, we're going to sign this paper, a couple of weeks we'll do this, a couple of weeks you do that. So in other words, if the United States is serious, they've got to come with good faith, and they've got to show, for instance, okay, we're in talks, we're negotiating, we're talking about denuclearization, then we have got to see the money up front for our frozen assets. So in other words, you pay us right now, or we're not talking to you. Oh, you want the Strait of Hormuz to be opened up again? Okay, fine. Where's our reconstruction money, of which is promised in this? Oh, you want X, Y, and Z? Well, how about that war in Iran, by the way? The Ayatollah, I think, has come out specifically and said that is number one on any bit of negotiation. That they must see that the IDF is no longer in southern Lebanon. The war has got to come to an end. Otherwise, there's no negotiation. That was number one on their list last time. So that's up front and center now. And by the way, none of that took place last time. So when the United States came out and said, which I thought was hilarious too, they came out and said, well, the Iranians broke the deal because of what they did in the Persian Gulf. They fired on this Qatari liquefied natural gas vessel. They violated it. First of all, no, they didn't. By the way, I've got the list right in front of me right now. Let me take a look at Article 5 in this. Reopening of the Strait of Hormuz within 30 days under Iranian arrangements. Never says anything about the U.S. will be involved. The U.S. will help escort vessels. The U.S. will tell ships where to go. Doesn't say anything like that. It doesn't even say anything the U.S. will respond if X, Y, and Z happens. So again, either Trump did not read this, or we just did this so we can resume the conflict again. Either or, both are bad. And so, if we want the Strait to be opened up, he's got to come to the table and give them something up front. If he doesn't do that, if he doesn't talk about that, he can talk about denuclearization all he wants. He can talk about opening of the Strait all he wants. It's not going to happen. The Iranians still have military control over the Strait as of right now, and they will continue to hold that. That's why they're meeting with the Omanis. I'm sure the Pakistanis want to get a deal going. I'm sure they do. But the Iranians are holding their ground, that they're saying we're not going to do this so long as this is taking place, so long as the war in Lebanon is going on, so long as the United States is still firing on us or threatening to attack us, which, by the way, is also in the Memorandum of Understanding right now. It's amazing to me. Oh, it's amazing, folks. But yeah, I mean, look at this. I'm looking at this right now, all 14 points. By the way, Trump came out and said he has a 15-point plan for them. They're not going to agree to any of that. We didn't even hold our end of the bargain of this. Why would they give us anything? Why would they give us anything? It doesn't make any sense. Nothing is ratified in the UN Security Council. Again, it's all ridiculousness. None of this was serious, unfortunately. So I'd like to see more of the art of the deal and less of, I don't know, the art of God knows what. God knows what this is. This is not diplomacy, by the way. This is not negotiations. I don't even know what this is. Con work? I really don't know. It pains me to say that to you, since I voted for President Trump. But this is what's happening, folks. This is what's taking place right now. We have a government that no other world leaders are taking seriously. Putin in Russia is not taking the United States seriously. Sergei Lavrov, again, who works in the government, same thing. Has said exactly the same thing. Xi doesn't take us seriously. Look at the meeting with Xi. What do we get from that? We sold him more soybeans. Winning anything on rare earths. By the way, they're holding our rare earths hostage that we use for military capabilities. How the hell are we going to have the world's strongest military if we can't even get the rare earths that are necessary for our missile systems? How are we going to use them? We're not. And so this traffic on the Strait of Hormuz, folks, again, is very troubling to us. The goods, the commodities, the petroleum, all things we need. Liquefied natural gas, helium, aluminum, sulfur, urea, all these things that are necessary in the global economy are not moving through. It says here that 8 ships on Sunday, 11 on Saturday, Pre-war was 140 ships per day moving through. These are extremely small numbers. That means things are in standstill, folks. Things are all in standstill. Yep. 34% of the global oil supply comes right through that region. Now it's completely choked off, and it's not coming to the West. So Trump has to be aware of this. He has to know this. And he's also got to be aware of this. This comes out of Reuters. Take a listen to this. It says here that the U.S. Army has used up so much of its stockpiles of highly accurate long-range missiles during the first 5 months of the war with Iran. Again, this is according to people in the military. The missiles are principally the Army's surface-to-surface weapons, known as the Army Tactical Missile Systems, ATACMS, if you will. We have the precision strike missiles. They're virtually all these weapons have been used. Now, I want you to think about that for a second. How are we supposed to have this offensive campaign if we're so depleted in Tomahawks, ATACMS, precision missiles? What are we going to hit them with? And are we just going to use everything we've got now on this new attacks we haven't seen since World War II? Whatever that means, by the way. What does that mean? Nobody knows. Now, it says the degree to which the military is running out of ATACMS and precision strike missiles has not yet been previously reported. The long-range munitions, which will cost more than $1 million each, which again, why you saw Pete Hegseth going to Congress and trying to get as much money from this Senate as he possibly can, allocated to build more of this, which we desperately need to do, by the way. And again, if we're going to use this money to restock up our military, which we need to do, I'm fine with that so long as we get on this war and we stop going to these wars. We stop having them. I'm okay with that. But again, if we're going to continue to sell them here, give them to Ukraine, give them to Israel, give them to Taiwan, it's got to stop. At the end of the day, you've got to look at this and say, how are we benefiting from this? How are the American people benefiting from this? How is the world a safer place when we're bombing in this and bombing there and causing this, straight to shut down, the Bab al-Mandeb straight to shut down? I mean, it gets redundant. It really does. But again, Biden, look what Biden did. Biden gave the Ukrainians everything they wanted. He did. Most of those missiles, by the way, God even knows where they went or if they were sold someplace else. We gave them so many weapons that were ending up on the black market. I mean, it's just unbelievable. The stupidity of this war of NATO versus Russia using Ukraine as a proxy was, again, stupid. We're seeing Putin now beginning to ramp up what is to be the end of this conflict, hopefully sooner rather than later. Again, that's another war that could have ended in a month. Joe Biden and Boris Johnson didn't want that to happen. They totally thwarted any type of peace agreement between Zelensky and Putin. That's why we're in this war 4.5 years later now. So the Russians are in this war of attrition. They're grinding down to destroy Ukraine. That's what's happening right now. Just destroying, just sucking the life out of it. That's what's taking place inside Ukraine right now. And now we have this on our hands, the United States, the great United States. All this money being spent on this arsenal we have, and we're giving this away to people? Just giving it away? We're not even restocking what we had? You'll recall last week, I gave you the rundown. How much was used during the war? How long will it take to reproduce some of these? And it's going to take a long time. Some of them it will take 5 years just to get back to the regular numbers that we had pre the Iran war. This is even before the weapons we gave to Ukraine and what have you. If we're going to have a strong military, let's build in the United States. Let's make sure we keep it in the United States so we have it. We have it. I don't know, maybe we need to have an emergency stockpiles program. I don't even know. But this giving away of these weapons using taxpayer dollars to give to this country, give to that country, it's not benefiting us. It's not helping us at all. It's not making the world a safer place. So everything that I've been telling you about clearly is confirmed in this Reuters report. That the dramatic rundown of the precision, the long-range missiles that we have to rely on are simply not being built to the degree we need it to be to replenish our stockpiles. We don't have it. And now we're talking about waging even more war to a very high, devastating effect in this alleged decapitation strike, which he wants to do again, President Trump. Nothing, again, positive coming from this. A person familiar with the matter said that, well, Central Command, which oversees U.S. forces in the Middle East, has nearly used up the land-based missiles it had before the war began. It has also been able to reload from the U.S. military supplies elsewhere in the world. Sources interviewed said that they spoke on the condition of anonymity. So we don't know exactly who said this, but these people are involved in this. They see what's going on here. They say our defense companies are at the moment making more munitions than they ever had before, but it takes time. So Lockheed and Martin can get a massive contract. Doesn't matter. What you're building today, at the very least, takes roughly a couple years to build. A couple years to build before you even get that missile to you. Some of them are done by hand. They take even longer. Again, attack guns, precision missiles, anti-ballistic missiles with the THAAD systems. All these things are being depleted down. Tomahawks, Patriot interceptors. We know right now, too, by the way, that our Patriot systems are up in arms about this. We simply just don't have this. Now we're talking about giving the Ukrainians the patents in order to create this. The ability to produce this. Why? Where are they going to get the resources to do this? Why, when we're depleting ourselves, will we allow Ukraine the ability to produce the missiles we have in the United States? Why would we give them that option to have? It's unbelievable. It really is. And by the way, I think we're fairly depleted in the Patriot missile system because, as I was told, this came from Scott Ritter, and he knows what he's talking about. He said yesterday, he said Sunday evening inside Ukraine, he said that 56 missiles were fired into Ukraine. 1 Patriot missile went up. Those are our missiles that we give them. We want to give them the capability to produce more. So I guess we're going to worry about that now amid this war we're fighting with Iran. What makes us think that we have more missiles with what we have in our stockpiles with the Iranians, especially when our air bases or our bases are getting hit constantly? And we think all of a sudden that we have this ample amount of these weapons. I don't buy it. I don't buy it for a second. It says here, for instance, Raytheon, which makes the Tomahawk missiles and the Patriot missile interceptors. 2 weapons very important to what's going on right now. These are depleting significantly. I mean, we've got to come to terms with this, folks. So, as I said before, either we run out of money or we run out of the ability to get our ships and get everything to where it needs to be with the oil problem, or we just simply run out of missiles. Which of the 3 would be best for us? And then how do we get our boys home? Back to the United States, if we have a vessel that's sitting there that has no oil to utilize it in these warships. What do we do then in these carrier ships? What do we do? Do we leave them there? What happens? Folks, you know my stance on this. This war did not have to happen. I stand by that. Everything I've told you has been coming true. And I'm not saying that to gloat to, ladies and gentlemen. I really don't say that to you in that sense. But why I say this to you is because this is where we are headed. We are headed for economic crisis right now. This is where we are going. And if it continues to get very bad, if this war continues on, it's going to start hitting the United States. I'm not talking about the war itself, but I'm talking about the economic woes, the lack of oil supply, the higher prices, the lack of just fertilizer to come to the United States. Even Scott Bessent in this article today on CNBC said exactly that. It's the fertilizer. Damn right it's the fertilizer. What you don't plant today, you're not going to have 6 months from now. Now, this planting season, I've been told, thank God, hasn't been affected yet because the supply of fertilizer came in just in time for the planting season in the fall. In the spring, rather. The fall is different, though, in the United States. The fall is going to be much different because now that urea, that sulfuric acid is not coming into the United States. What are farmers going to do then? How are they going to feed their animals? What are they going to do? How are they going to use the Haber-Bosch system? You know, this nitrogen-based fertilizer that's used that allows for the increase in the amount of crops we can produce. What happens then? We have a global famine in the global south. You don't think that's going to cause a mass migration out of Africa, out of Central and South America? You're dreaming if you think otherwise. So these problems we have other ramifications, other consequences that will affect the United States. Just because we're not going to feel it yet. And by the way, I pray to God we don't have a food shortage or a fuel shortage. I hope we get things moving in the right direction. But we're just hanging on to this war like we're going to win and that we can just hold this off. Doesn't matter if we get the fertilizer or not. Doesn't matter. We could do without it. We've got to win this war. We got to finish the job. We keep hearing this. That's why you heard Trump allude to, there's people that want me to finish this. No kidding. It's these neocon war hawks that base their life off the Wolfowitz doctrine of global hegemony. And we come to a situation where we're not any better off. In fact, we're much, much worse off. And we're allowing the Iranians to take a much higher position in the global standing. That's what it all comes down to. Right, folks, that's all I have to tell you today about the Iran war. So next up, let's take a look at one more article. We've got a few minutes remaining in today's program, about 3 minutes left or so. Let's take a look at this. This comes out of Politico. It says here about Todd Blanche. His confirmation fight is happening right now. He is expected to get through the Judiciary Committee, but the confirmation is still not yet a done deal. Now, he's met with John Cornyn. He's met with Tom Tillis, North Carolina, Sunday evening to clarify the controversial settlement between President Trump and the IRS. These two have come to agree that they will vote for him, and it looks like they will push him over the top to get through the Judiciary Committee. He still has to get through the full Senate vote, though. That's going to be a big problem for him, I do believe. He could lose two Republicans. Mitch McConnell, his absence is going to be an issue with that, though. So if he loses two Republicans, he has not made it through. That's going to be another a little bit of a firewall for him to get over in this case. He'll probably squeak through, folks. I do believe that. Now, Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska said, I think certainly the fact that he has signaled this order, basically disbanding the IRS fund, that it's a pretty good step. So who knows if she would come through and actually vote for him. She came out against him just recently. So I think he'll get through. I think it'll be by the skin of his teeth, but he will get through on this one. Oh, by the way, I'll just bring up this topic to you as well. This comes out of the Washington Times. Zohran Mamdani in New York City, right, the big orange. His promise for the use of free bus ride has not technically come to fruition just yet, but there is evidence that is suggesting that the riders may now be trying to evade paying the fares just because they feel like they deserve a free bus ride. Isn't that nice? Almost half of the New York City bus riders have evaded bus fares this year through June. It's amazing. I don't know how these buses can run on that. And a similar proposition to the final quarter of 2025 and up from the 44% of people ditching the bus in quarter three. This is all according to the Metropolitan Transportation Authority. Isn't this wonderful, folks? You have a promise not being met of free bus rides. You can't get the money to do it. And now you have people just simply, we see this all the time in New York City, people rushing through the turnstiles to get onto the subway. We see people now riding the bus. Half of the bus riders now are not paying fares. It's no good, folks. Certainly no good at all. I expect this to get worse. Again, Gotham City is right in front of our eyes. It's going to get worse. People now expect Mr. Mamdani to fulfill his campaign pledge to make buses free all over the place. Not going to happen. Simply just not going to happen. But people will ride the bus for free. Obviously, there are no consequences in New York City. The police have been deballed, unfortunately. And as a result, what do we see? We see these people without any rancor or without any blame. They'll just simply get on the bus. They'll do whatever the hell they want. They'll jump on the freeway, the subway system. This is the future of New York City. So you have people riding the bus that simply are not paying their way through, and it shouldn't come as a shock to anybody listening. This is where we are now, in this country. Free this, free that. Nothing ever becomes free, folks. Everything has got to be paid for at some point. And Mamdani certainly cannot raise the taxes in order to get all these freebies he wants pushed through. So we'll see how popular he is in the upcoming months as time goes on. That's all I got for you today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again for being here. Thank you again for sharing the show, folks. I see a lot of you sharing the show. I see your numbers going up, so I appreciate that so much. Thank you as always. Make sure you're staying prepped, folks, especially with your essentials as prices and scarcity rises throughout this war. It's not over yet. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you back here tomorrow for another episode of the Mark Andre Show. Until then, be good, stay busy. God bless.